I don't think this is going to be a very long one, um, but we're going to go over lots of good material, things I wish I'd learned like 10 plus years ago. Instead, when I say more than 10, like 2 decades ago, I wish I would have had this. It's really comprehensive information. Uh, it's accessible to everybody. You don't need to be initiated to do this. Everybody, in my opinion, has the right to be able to clean themselves. I don't worry about like, oh, what if they stop buying baths from me? That's not a big deal. Baths aren't like a big moneymaker for me. Just, they're not like they're like bread and butter type things, but I don't really worry about them. Not to mention, when it comes to making these sort of things, when you're making baths, you're working with your own juju. And as such, like everybody has different levels of juju that they can tap into. And, when you have a bath made by somebody that has a lot of experience, a lot of juju, you can definitely feel the difference. I remember the first bath that I did, a spiritual bath I ever did was from Gene. And like, wow, it like blew my socks off. I was having a pain between my shoulders, and Gene gave me a bath to do. And he said, before you leave, just splash a little bit on that spot. And I did, and the pain instantly went away. I went home, I followed the rest of the instructions, did the bath, and I think it was a 7-day bath. And I never had that issue with pain ever again, still to this day. To contrast that, I have had baths from different spiritual workers. Some, they were rather significant. Other ones, I've personally felt that I made better quality baths. So there's just a few basic things that you need to do this. The first and most important is going to be a big bowl of water. You're also going to need a candle. A tea light candle is fine. Now, I'm going to light this candle off camera, and it's going to burn off camera because I have respect for the candle flame. Whenever we light a candle, we impregnate it with our intentions, our spirits. They come to life in a candle. I don't really recommend that you're posting pictures of candles that you've lit for spirits. Some people can gain access to you through such pictures. And I think that I'm going to say that also. I think that people that can access you through such pictures are very few and far between, but you don't know who's out there. There's no reason to risk it, and there's no need to expose yourself unnecessarily. Okay. Now, people have FOMO. We want to connect. We want to feel, like we're close to others, but we don't need to show pictures of our very private things. Okay. So the leaves that we're using today comes from common wormwood that you can get just about anywhere. It grows just about everywhere. It's a naturalized plant in the States. You can get it in Europe. There are Eastern variations that I don't know very much about, but it's an extremely common plant. And you'll see it growing on the sides of the road. It's very easy to identify by its leaves, by its color, and it has a very medicinal smell when you break the leaves. If you break the leaves and you kind of rub them together, you'll definitely detect a very medicinal quality to it. Wormwood's a great plant for cleaning. It's very astringent. It's healing, and it's a bitter leaf. And because it's so bitter, it just tends to strip off all the unnecessary stuff that you have. Now, I don't recommend bathing in wormwood all the time, but it's good, especially if you feel like you really need to be clean, that you haven't been clean in a while. Wormwood's a great plant. It's readily available this time of year. And, you should be able to identify it pretty easily. It does have a couple of plants that look similar to it. One is, we call it waxweed, It looks sort of like wormwood, but when you break the leaves or the stems, you'll notice a white waxy goo coming out of it. And waxweed still has its own purposes. It's commonly used when you have a relative or somebody that's sick or having a slow time recovering. You know, you can write their name and tie it to that plant. And as that plant grows, you'll see them recover. Now, as soon as they fully recover and they're energetic again, you take their name off the plant. But it's, you know, every plant has a use. Sometimes you have to observe them and to really understand what they're all about. If anyone's familiar with rain trees, they're another really good plant to clean yourself with. They tend to work really well, be really strong and very effective. Because when you think about the plant, it grows straight up really quickly and it gets these high, lofty canopies. So that tells us like the type of spirits that it attracts are, one, they're masculine energies mostly, and two, that these are very high and lofty spirits. So it's a great plant to clean with. You tend to get kind of a jolt in whatever you're working on. So we've gone out, we've collected some plants. I have my mortar here. The mortar is not a necessary component. You can just rip the leaves up by hand. But if you really want to get good extraction of your leaves, I recommend that you get out the mortar and the pestle and break up your leaves that way. So the first thing you're going to see that I do is I separate the leaf material from the stems. Very simple stuff. Now these leaves I collected locally, literally went like right down the street from my home and picked them up. And obviously I do it with respect. Whenever I'm picking up plants, I talk to them in a very respectful manner and I keep it very short and sweet. Hey, this is me. And I say my spiritual name, Fork Nam Puen. It's me, Fork Nam Puen. You know me. I'm here for your good medicine. And I'm only going to take what I need. And I'm not going to leave you with nothing. And I give them a few coins or I pour a little liquor for them, whatever I'm in the mood to do. Okay? I have to get the genus name of that, Nikki. For rain trees, you probably have them in the islands. They have cousins that are very similar to them we call them China berry. And they're very lofty trees in Haiti. There's a similar species called bousiette. And these are basically trees that grow very tall, very quickly. And the coin type doesn't matter so much as the amount being an odd number. And it's worth saying that once you've paid a plant a few times, you go there and you pay it and you take, as long as you're not killing the plant in the process. Once you've paid it a few times, you just need to go talk to it. It'll know who you are. It'll respect you. It will trust you, but we got to start somewhere in building that relationship. I have a few areas that are rather dense bush and I've paid those areas a couple of times and, they know me when I'm coming, and the leaves tend to come off very easily. Yeah, I figured you have that plant somewhere. It's pretty common in the islands. Both the rain tree and the China berry were brought over from the Far East. Another good plant that is very common in the islands is the common, what's called Jamaican vervain. Sometimes it's called porter's weed. Sometimes it's called chicken weed. It has a somewhat visual resemblance to common if you're already taking care of that plant, you don't need to make offerings to it. That's your plant. We're making offerings to the spirits that are out in nature. It's not necessarily the plant itself, but We're accounting for what we call Simbi, little spirits that are out there hanging out in the wilderness, growing, helping the plants grow, doing their stuff. We're making sure that those spirits are happy with us. Now, there are people that just go take and don't bother paying, and well, that's on them. You know, we want to do things with respect so that we have these long-standing relationships with these plants, and the more respectfully you do these things, the more bang you're going to get for your buck. Yeah, chickenweed. It's good stuff. Very good plant, good for cleaning. I have some in my garden, but it's still recovering from the hurricane. That's why I'm not using it today, although I typically do use it. And, you know, you can learn a lot about a plant by what it attracts, and you'll notice that chickenweed attracts a lot of butterflies. Some people call it butterfly bush in the States. It grows really fast. It kind of looks a little bit like mint in its leaf patterns, and it just takes over everything. Those are the types of plants we're looking to work with, are the ones that grow like weeds or are weeds. The reason being is they have a lot of energy, and we don't have to put as much of our energy into them to be able to work and heal. We're actually borrowing more energy from the plants and, you know, cleaning ourselves that way. Sometimes there are slower growing plants that are used for cleaning, like plants like black walnut. And, you know, it's a very good plant, but it's also another plant that you don't want to clean with very often. Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's perfect to use dandelions in your bath. But here's the thing with dandelions. They're actually a bitter herb, okay? It's considered a bitter herb, like a medicinal type plant. Like this plant I'm using right here is what we would call bitter. Sweet plants would be like mint, basil, and things like that. Things that kind of have a sweeter taste to them. But it'll clean you just as well. When do we use a sweet plant over a bitter plant, or a sweet bath over a bitter bath? There are times when we need a little bit of extra sweetness. We need to bring those sweet spirits into our lives, those water spirits that make things grow. So sweet plants are plants that are very fragrant. Okay, like when you can smell that plant before you even see it, that's a terrific sign of a sweet plant. When we're talking about bitter plants, they tend to be plants that are, in fact, bitter in taste. They could be things like wild lettuce is a bitter leaf. It's wild lettuce. If you know anything about it, it's a very medicinal plant. And, you know, you can make a tea out of it if you have a persistent cough. You can make an even stronger tea of its juices if you're dealing with pain. It's a very wonderful plant. Lilacs, yes, sweet smelling. Things that smell good. If it smells good, it is good. Okay, when we're talking about hot and cool, when we're talking about plants, we're talking about their colors. All right? Hot fruit, hot plants are red ones. Cool fruits are going to be green in color, typically. So if we're talking about flowers, white flowers are going to be cool. Pink flowers are going to be on that edge between hot and cool. Blue flowers are cool. Purple flowers are cool. That's how we identify. We're doing color, taste, smell, and how it grows. And if you won't really need a compendium of herbs if you come to observe plants and how they grow. You might want to go on a tour with a local guide to teach you what the local plants are in your area, which ones are edible, which ones you need to watch out for. But in general, all right, we're staying away from things like angel trumpet and poisonous plants in you know, that spectrum. They do have their place, but I urge people to use a lot of caution with that sort of stuff, because you can kill yourself, or you can damage yourself in such a way where, you know, you're going to want to wait till the next cycle round in the rebirth cycle. So I've taken my leaves, removed them from the stems, and now I'm just going to work them into the mortar until I get them into a nice paste. Now I'm going to move this off the table so that I don't accidentally spill it. Now the reason why I'm using a mortar and pestle is it allows me to put even more energy into the bath. The whole process of grinding it is just adding juju to this bath. I want this bath to be as potent as it can be. I want to release all the good juju from this plant. So I'm going to add a little bit of my own energy into this so that I can maximize the quality of the bath that I'm making. And how long do you need to grind it until? It's going to be your level of satisfaction. Yes, yeah, I do. There will be a day where people are going to say, you know, the belladonna, eat belladonna challenge, you know, and see how quickly people, you know, have aneurysms, basically. Now, your mortar and pestle can be used magically in a lot of ways, okay? Not just for grinding up plants, although that helps. It's a very good idea to process things with mortar and pestle, but you could say, have a person that you want to help sweeten up, you know, without their knowledge, and you could take a picture of them, put it in the bottom of the mortar, right? Facing up, and you could put some sugar, sweet stuff in there, maybe some fruits, and just start to mash it in there, mash it up real good, and talk about, man, how you want to make everything so sweet in their life because everything's been so difficult for so long, and you mash it up, and you take your time, and you sit there and work that thing for as long as you can tolerate it. Then, when you're satisfied, you can take those contents, put them in a jar, and be satisfied that they're going to be very, very sweet. Okay, that their lives are going to be sweet. Conversely, you can do the same thing with bitter herbs. You can grind somebody up in some bitter stuff. Now, you'd want to have two separate mortars for that. One for your sweet, one for your bitter, if you're going to work it magically. And you could do the same thing with someone with a bunch of bitter, stinky stuff, and just grind that stuff on top of them, into them, and really give them a hard time. You could get dried bugs, dirts from places that are unfortunate, like a cemetery, a mental hospital, stuff like that, and just grind it on top of them. You could even just, if you wanted to add some heat to it, you could even just take some red powder and add some red powder to that. So you see, we're starting to get to a really pasty consistency now. All those leaves, they're just turning into this little pile of paste. Okay. And it's coming off on my fingers just by touching it, so I'm very satisfied with where we've got things.